Okay, so this tutorial is for my dear friend Heather Nicole, who needs some help with some eyes. And I've actually been meaning to do an eye tutorial for a long time. So sometimes that's the way I roll, is whenever somebody needs something, that's kind of like my motivation to make a tutorial. So I'm sorry for this being kind of sideways, but you know, gotta put this on YouTube later because this will be valuable information, hopefully, if I do it right. The first thing I have to do is dye my fondant ivory because white is hard to see. Sometimes I use modeling chocolate when I do faces, and it really just depends. I tend to do smaller faces in fondant because I don't need as many details, but I'll do like bigger faces out of modeling chocolate to get kind of those details that I need. So to make ivory, I actually am just literally just adding ivory food coloring to fondant. And people ask me a lot of times how to make skin color. Obviously we all have different skin colors. So depending on what kind of skin color you want, you might want to use brown, warm brown, a little bit of red, sometimes a little bit of yellow, even some black to get the color that you want. But for this purpose, I'm just using straight up ivory. I'm gonna wash my hands real quick. So somewhere I actually have some little plastic eyeballs that are pre-colored, and I just tore up my whole kitchen searching for them, and I just cannot find them anywhere, of course, because I cleaned, and that's how you lose stuff, is you clean. So anyways, I'm gonna try and do it without. So when I make an eyeball, I'll go over a couple of little facts here. This is gum paste. I'm gonna have to raise up my phone. Raise it up so that you guys can see better. I may or may not be able to see your comments, so I'm sorry if I miss it. But here's a skull. Let's look at our little skull here. Stay here, skull. An eyeball fits within a skull, and it's much bigger than you think. Like, people tend to make the eyeballs kind of small. They make the eye big overall to the face, but they don't cover it with eyelids. So like your eye fills up a good amount of the skull. Hopefully this anatomy part is not too boring. Some people might find it useful though. So let's say, I feel like all my tutorials end up having some sort of weird creepy factor with eyeballs. Yeah, it's kind of creepy for sure. Okay, as promised, it's for, I promise there's a reason. So these are your two eyes that are in your skull, and in general, there is one eyeball space between the two eyes. This is kind of a cartoony skull, so it's not like 100% anatomically correct, but in general, your skull is 8 eyeballs wide. So looking straight on, there's like one eyeball between the side of your eye and the side of your head. You can't really tell from this angle, but there is. And then there's one eye here, one eye here, one eye here, one eye here. So there's 5 eyes wide. Okay. And then, oh, I should say that when your eye is in the socket, it actually sticks out about halfway. So if you were to make a socket in your sculpture and you put the eye into the socket, you should be able to see some of the eye. I should just do this in this skull. That'll actually make a lot more sense if we just do this on the skull. So what I'll do is I'll make eyeballs out of gum paste and let them dry on a toothpick so that they're perfectly round, and that kind of helps me to draw on my eyeball because I can hold on the back, and then I'll take the toothpick out and stick it into my skull, the finished eyeball, and then paint it with glaze so that, yes, I did take anatomy twice. So you can take the toothpick out and you can insert it into your skull. So now let's paint our eyeball first. Let's do that. So a couple of tricks that I use to paint eyes. Hi, Sabrina. That's Bee Hot, my girl. You guys should follow her. She has really awesome tutorials as well on Periscope, and she owns a bakery. So if you're ever curious about storefront bakery stuff, you gotta follow her. So anyway, we have our two eyeballs. I use a piping tip to indent where the iris is of the eyeball. And the way that your iris actually works is it actually is sort of bulged out from the side of your eyeball. So it actually adds to the realism to do a little indentation. So I'm going to try without, hopefully without distorting because usually these are a little bit firmer before I do this, but for the purposes of teaching, you can see there's a little indentation. So that's going to help me a lot when I start painting. And I used to just use straight food color right out of the jar, food color gel. Ugh. But I'm going to use the Everclear and food color mixture that Angela Nino of the Painted Box taught me how to do because I feel like it works better. I gotta grab my paintbrushes. I'll be right back. So I have a couple of watercolor brushes. This is just a number 2 watercolor brush. And I'm just going to try my hardest. You can use regular vodka if you can't get Everclear. It's just not going to work quite as well. So I'm just, my arm's a little bit shaky, so normally I would have this like right up close to my face. So you can see the color stays within the lines pretty well. And it also kind of settles into the crevices around the outside edge of the eyeball, and which kind of adds to the realism. And I'm actually going to go in and just sort of intensify that with little strokes. Let me get a little bit closer so you guys can see. So you can do little tiny strokes to intensify the color around the outside edges. So when I'm doing this on a really small scale, I don't go through all of this. I just freehand it, but I'm trying to give you guys an idea of what the process. Okay, so that's a better size. So now what I'm going to do is come in with my water. I'm just going to remove a little bit of the color from down below, because the way that light hits an eye is the light comes in from the top, and because this is a sphere, it projects light into the sphere and makes the bottom light, and then you get a shadow underneath the eyelid So you actually have a gradient of dark to light. So to kind of enhance that, I remove some of the color from down below. And then I'll go back with more color, or even a little bit of black, and intensify the color that's on top. And I have a little bit of, so you see the gradient that I have going on right now. Now I'm going to come in with a little bit of black. I'm going to fill in the black part. Like that. And then I'm going to put a little bit of black all the way around. Steady hand. You see how my pinky's touching the skull here? That's to steady my hand. And then I'm just going to intensify the deep blue area up here. I just got these brushes at Blick's. And there's nothing special about them other than that they're watercolor brushes. So I like the way that watercolor brushes hold the food color. Okay, so I'm going to pinch this out. Now, when you're making an eyelid, it's important to not lose some of the thickness of your fondant, because your eyelids actually have depth to them. They actually have thickness. And you cut it in half. I'm going to lay this over the top. It's my sculpting tools. Google what? What are you talking about? So you put the eye part on. This skull is a pre-made skull. I'm just using it for demonstration purposes. So you need to have this bottom eyelid part. This is an important aspect to how your face looks. Like if you go and look in the mirror right now, you will see this little area below your eye, and that's actually like a bag, like a baggy area. If you don't want to see the comments, just left swipe and touch on the little comment box, and that will hide the comments. You're welcome. So this little, even if you got all the sleep in the world, you still have this little bag of skin underneath your eye. So you can't forget that part. And then we do the upper eyelid. So this has got to go, this eye needs to wrap all the way around. And then your upper eyelid goes over like this. And your upper eyelid overlaps the bottom eyelid. So now I can go in with my like fine sugar shapers and I can put in my eyelid crease. Oops. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense to you as far as why the eye looks the way that it does. So it's really, really important to have like the full circle, you know what I mean? So from the side, you see how you can see the side of the eye and you can see a little bit of the white? That's realistic. You don't want the eye to be flat. You need that rounded eyeball part. And then can shape the eyelid. To whatever shape that you need it to be. Yeah, absolutely this can be done on small figures. It obviously is a lot more challenging. But you see how big the eye was to begin with, and then you got to cover it up basically. And then the way that the eyebrow works is you have kind of this flap of skin. It goes over, creases in. Obviously, I would spend a lot more time smoothing this all out and stuff. But this crease is where the eyebrow would lay. So if there was more skin right here, just smooth out this seam with a little bit of water. So I like to kind of make an indentation of where the eyebrow is. I feel like if you really wanted to practice face sculpting, you could buy one of these skulls and just practice putting skin on top of a skull. Just go in and put a little water on there to glue it. Looks like the Terminator. I'll just roll out a piece of fondant. Oops, sorry. Keep bumping my thing. could also paint on the eyelashes if you wanted to, but there's my little scissors. Oops, wrong ones. I can go in. Hey Melody. I love Melody's modeling chocolate for sculpting. I just happened to be doing kind of a smaller face. So I had some ivory on hand, so you can use modeling chocolate or fondant for this technique. So now I'm painting on some lower lashes. So if you guys want to learn more about face anatomy, you should become a patron. Sign up, because I make video tutorials on how to sculpt things like this. Patreon.com/sugargeekshow. Yeah, the skull is from a hobby store. It was like a Halloween decoration, so I just use it as a reference, but it actually makes for good practice. You're welcome. So, anyway, that's it. Hopefully that has enlightened you guys a little bit. Don't forget the tear duct. Helped you a little bit on how to make an eyeball. You can obviously use any color that you would like. Oh, and lastly, I almost forgot the most important part. Confectioner's glaze. Confectioner's glaze is nasty stuff, but it works amazing. You could also use corn syrup, but it doesn't dry quite as well. You gotta use a brush that you don't care about, because unless you have the thinner, it basically ruins the confectioner's glaze will ruin a brush. So you gotta buy the thinner and the confectioner's glaze. And but basically, it's an edible glaze that when you put it over the top, it makes things very, very shiny. And an important aspect of a eye is for it to have that shine factor, so that it looks wet. So once your eye is completely dry, you put on some confectioner's glaze, and that makes it look like life, right? So now our eye has that shine to it and looks alive. Isn't that cool? Man, I forgot to turn on my lights. Stupid. Did this whole tutorial without any lights on, but you can see that now. So that's how you do an eyeball. You can buy confectioners glaze from Ruth Ricky, her website. That's where I got it. And Angela Nino should have a YouTube tutorial up soon on how to make the Everclear paint. I'm using LMF fondant, which is on my website, artisancakecompany.com. And yeah, if you guys like tutorials like this, please sign up for patreon.com/sugargeekshow, and I will put this on YouTube for you. See you guys later. Oh, you want me to answer questions? Okay. What do I do with the face? This face I will just tear apart and throw it away because it was just for demonstration purposes. I have not tried Karma. I only use LMF. I've actually not really used any other fondants. You're welcome. Oh, the recipe for the gum paste I use is also on my website. It's the Nicholas Lodge gum paste. These little skulls are just plastic. Angela Nino of the Painted Box. She has a YouTube channel. Go check her out. She hand paints stuff all the time. Angela Nino. You're welcome, Heather. Hopefully this helped you. My website's artisancakecompany.com and patreon.com/sugargeekshow.